with a natural life sentence.
Wow.
And the next day, I go to Quincy Court, and Judge Coffey, at 47 years old, got attention, I should say. No one ever looks at us in court. Black and brown people are just discarded and sent away.
Okay.
And remarkably, this Judge Coffey looked at me and said, "What's wrong with you?" He allowed me to express myself. I didn't need an attorney at that point. I knew what I needed to do. Manipulatively, my mind was still in my old behavior, but I was crossing over. Right? The brain has power to cross over. I crossed over in that moment, and I took advantage of what he was saying to me. And in that moment, I knew I needed to take accountability for my actions of the harm that I was causing my family, my community, and my sisters in that prison. And I took responsibility, got sent over to Dedham Superior, and I took a 3 to 5, and I went back to the prison with time served. I did my 3 years because I had been in there waiting trial 9 months, and I got busy with myself. I got into the law library. Started studying law and trying to help my sisters come out of there. I got into BU without getting any college credits. Unfortunately, that's how the prison treats you. I didn't have a 4-year sentence. I couldn't take a degree program, but they let me come in and study, right? So I did that, and it was a whole different process and trajectory for my life. I had no idea. Education's important.
Right.
And so it wasn't until another young girl walked in my cell, Kimia Faust, and in her life was a sexual assault at 14. She was a victim in Suffolk District Attorney's Office, and then became a defendant at 29. And no one ever looked at her 14-year-old case. And that really drove me into this system that we call a criminal justice. Let's just call it a legal system, right? And
there is no justice in the criminal
justice. And no justice for us.
Right, exactly, because it's just us.
It's just us.
Yes.
Right? Yeah. And so from there, I came home, and I was determined. I was determined to develop a reentry program for my sisters. I was determined to learn some part of the law without going into law school. I wanted to understand why so many of us are buried in these prisons. Why judges and district attorneys press so hard. We know the numbers of disproportionately sentenced. We know the numbers of wrongful convictions. And then it just turned my world around to really look at, are we dealing with mental illnesses and they're just discarding us? Are we dealing with substance use disorder and they're discarding us? And that was my journey to understand. So I went into Cambridge College. I came out in 2016 with a master's degree in mental health. And I went further to get licensure in substance abuse counseling. And then I went to Boston College to learn business entrepreneurship with Professor Giannari. Got to give that brother a shout out because he allows formerly incarcerated people to come in the classroom for free to learn alongside of corporate law students. And in the audience, there was a process that he had, wealthy people that were interested in formerly incarcerated people to help us become business, nonprofit, for-profit, whatever your desire was. I did a presentation, and there was a beautiful couple in the audience, anonymous couple who said, "We'll buy you that house." And so in 2019, we got a house right here in Dorchester. And 2022, we opened the doors. And the 2 women that saved my life in the prison, Kimia and Angie Jefferson, through the help of Families for Justice is Healing, brought them home.
James. Amen.
That's right, my sister Andrea James. And so doing participatory defense organizing model that she trained us on was effective. And so that's just the work we do. We bring our sisters home. We look
give them a place to stay.
That's right.
Help them with any issues they may have, like finding a place to stay, a job, any type of therapy they may need.
That's the first effort of trauma.
Yes.
We deal with trauma first before we talk about placing someone in housing or placing someone in jobs. I heard a brother say at an event one time, Priscilla, And it was so meaningful, and it did something to my head when he said, people expect us to come out of these prison environments, these unnatural, violent, often environments, and expect us to go get a job. We don't even have a doorknob, he said, in a prison. I don't even know how to turn a doorknob after 40 years, 30 years. That's significant.
That's true. That's true.
You're controlled in that environment.
Yeah.
So you come out and you want us to get a job. How does that happen? You want us to live in an apartment. One might not had one before.
Right.
So we must create these reentry programs and housing elements for
that
them
allows them to be able to
migrate slowly back into community. And so that's part of the work that I do.
All right.
It's rewarding work when you see someone say, wow, I can do this.
Right.
Yeah, storytelling,
Yes.
creative writing, art therapy, all of that.
I've seen some like the event that you give every year up at the Grove Hall,
Yeah.
and I've heard some of the women testimony about how they've gotten out, have gotten themselves together, have dealt with what they needed to do through your program.
That's right.
And now they're they're standing tall and they're doing what they need to and want to do.
Yeah,
And so
Angie
that's a
Jefferson
blessing.
is living her life. She's got
Yes.
her own apartment. She's got a job. She's not causing anybody harm.
Yeah.
We know the statistics of that as well. Not one woman in the state of Massachusetts have come out having that type of transgression of murder, second degree, manslaughter, arson, have not caused any other harm being released.
Right.
And by the way, let me say that the work that these organizations, that our organizations are doing on the ground have lessened 40% of crime in this state, in Boston, has lessened. And we have the lowest incarceration population in the country.
Amen for
212 women
that. Wow.
in Framingham. 212. They've already closed Concord, Walpole. We don't need no more new prisons.
Exactly. Are they
Right?
still trying to build that $50
It's
million?
kind of quiet,
Yeah.
but Families
We
for
gotta
Justice
watch
is
'em.
Healing. We got to watch them. We
Yeah.
got to watch them.
'Cause
And Families for Justice
Yes.
is Healing is still on it.
Yes,
I mean, we
yes.
have some good people in Senate that are
Right.
really saying, hey, we're going
What
to
sense
support
does
you.
it make to build a $50 million woman's prison?
Can you imagine?
You could do so much more.
That's for
What
the
about-
next generation.
Exactly.
They're preparing it.
Oh, my
So
God.
we're saying
Yeah.
you can
No.
take that 50 million, put it in housing, put it in our Boston public school system.
Exactly.
We don't have to have this homeless population
Put
that
it
we
in
have.
job training.
Put
You
it
know?
in job training. Put it in education.
Exactly.
Right.
Really. So there's so much that we as black people have to deal with, black and brown people have to deal with in this system,
Yes.
And this racist system. We need to call it out for what it is. It's
Yeah,
racism.
there's so
at
many
the core.
barriers. It's
Yes.
such a deep oppression.
Yes.
They've oppressed
yes.
us so long.
I know. But you know what? A change is gonna come.
Ooh,
and change
is gonna
coming.
come. Yeah,
Yes,
change
yes.
is happening.
Yes, it is.
Because we're not giving
Yeah.
up.
No, we can't. We've come too far.
That's right. That's
and
I mean, let's shout out to Boston City Council members, President Council Ruthie,
Ruthie.
who is the not the first black woman,
right.
right? We
Right.
had
Andrea
is she the-
Campbell. We've
Andrea
had
Campbell as the president,
Kim Janey.
Kim Janey, but now we
Yeah.
have
Ruthie.
Brother Brian Worrell, who's
Right.
a vice. Now
Yes.
that has never happened. You talking about diversity,
Right.
equity, and inclusion? We have two black people who are running the city council.
Right. So that should be a plus for us, right?
I think so.
Yes,
I
yes.
feel good about it.
Yeah. I'll tell you, Stacy, it's amazing, how we as black and brown people, how we survive through our many trials and tribulations,
Yeah.
and how we do different things, but it's all the same because we're trying to liberate our people,
Yeah.
And so I am thankful and grateful to you for what you've done because it takes a lot to do what you've done, and to do what you're doing. I tell you, running for office ain't no joke.
It's
I did
not.
it, okay?
Yeah, I know you did. I know you did.
And so
I watched you.
But I tell you, it's rewarding at the end.
Yeah.
Especially when you have the victory.
On both ends, you create a good team. This is not an alone work.
Right.
Not the work of reentry, not the work of trying to run for office. You have to build a great team that believe
right.
in you.
Yes,
You know, and
yes.
I've been able to do that on both ends. And so we'll see.
Yes.
Running for governor's council is a big task in this
Yes.
District 4.
It's a lot. It's a lot of work. So tell us a little bit about the governor's council. Tell us exactly, for someone that don't know, never heard of the word
Yeah.
governor's council. Tell us what they do. How would they? Well, we know they're elected, but who, kind of like oversees them?
Yeah, so the governor's council is made up of 8 members throughout Massachusetts. Right, it's 8 districts.
Okay.
District 4 for governor's council is the biggest district. It's
Okay.
Boston and 19 towns, basically on the South Shore.
Okay.
And the role of the governor's council is to review nominations from the governor for
Okay.
judgeship, for parole board members,
Mm-hmm.
for clemency, commutation, and pardons.
Okay.
In auditing,
Mm-hmm.
you got to review the audit. You got to follow the money.
Right.
You got to make sure that those budgets that are being set forth are spending in the right places that it's supposed to go. We don't have no knowledge of none of that.
Right.
We don't have any knowledge of who are the board members. Well, let's say 75% of nominations that get accepted come from prosecutors or policing. That's our judges and that's our parole board members.
Right.
We haven't had anybody for clemency since 1997. We've had 2 commutations with the help of Devin McCourtney, if I'm saying his name right, from the Patriots, when Governor Baker was going out. Thank God them 2 brothers came out.
Right.
But what if we didn't have the Patriots to help?
Right.
We haven't had anybody in 30 years. That means someone who's qualified to come home spent another 30 years because our governor's council role aren't looking at the clemency applications. They're not really putting them forth.
Unbelievable.
So the governor to review,
They don't have anything
to
to
submit.
review.
I don't know that because we're not given that information. So my point of candidacy is to say my role is to go in and update and enlighten our communities of what's going on in the governor's council. Now, all of a sudden you could hear what's going on because the governor announced and was clear that she was nominating an ex-partner. All of a sudden we hear this influx of, the governor's council, and everybody's like, what is the governor's council? What?
Right.
What?
Right.
Now, that judge obviously seemed to be really qualified to get on the SJC, right? She's a judge. But who really questioned her? Who really vetted that process?
Right.
And so if we studied the tapes, but who came back to the community to give us that information?
Right.
Who's coming back from the governor's council to tell us about these auditing reports?
Nobody.
We're not getting the information.
No.
You know why? We haven't had any representation
Right.
on the governor's council. In 400 years, there has never, ever been a person of color to represent our community.
Unbelievable.
It was designed in
Unbelievable.
1600, 1629, I believe. And there's never, and even, I've been at some of these Democratic town hall committees in the South Shore. Most of them have never heard of the governor's council. Why? Because on the ballot it just says counselor. We've been fluked.
Again.
So when you go vote, people just vote, although there has been 205,000 unaccounted votes in the last election
Wow.
for this seat, for District 4, because nobody knows. And if you do know, they're not willing to vote for the incumbent because he's just not bringing that information to anybody.
That's ridiculous. And this has just been going on. So really no one's being held accountable for the governor's council or their members or anybody.
Well, imagine, can we get these zealous these zealous defense attorneys to be nominated? Can we get a civil attorney to be not. We got to think different.
Mm-hmm.
We cannot continue to go on the same journey
Right.
that we've been on for decades.
Thinking we're gonna get different results. It's insanity.
That's insanity, right? And so, my role of, being in that seat is to really say, when you're vetting parole board members or judgeship, you got to ask these specific questions. Do they know about our black and brown communities? Do they know any alternatives to sentencing?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we're talking about judges that are juvenile judges, disability judges, unemployment judges, civil judges, criminal judges, superior judges, supreme judicial judges. All judges. And I needed to name that because some of our community members don't realize. That's right. And so if we're thinking the same from a prosecutor's view, how are we going to present a human being in front of them to think different?
Right.
And even not knowing anything that's going on in our communities are thriving pretty much in my view.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we have a lot of organizations out here, a lot of resources that are available for people to do better. But if you walk into a court and you don't have the right representation,
You're in
listen,
trouble.
the bottom line is we don't go to school for law, many of us. So you have a whole system that's educated in what they went to school for and what was designed for. It was designed for us in that manner to keep us oppressed. And we're saying we got to unlock those doors.
That's right. That's so true. This is very enlightening, to me because, I'm learning some stuff I didn't know. And it's just amazing. There's a scripture in the Bible that says, my people perish for lack of knowledge.
For lack of knowledge.
And I believe that, that's what's happening. Some of us are just, when either we're not paying attention or we just feel hopeless or we just feel like we can't, nothing's going to change.
That's right.
But we have to change first within ourselves,
right.
We
have to change our way of thinking.
Yes, and we have to be able to stand together, to speak up and to speak out.
That's right.
We can't just keep being in silos. We got to work together.
That's right. We need to create more
why
ecosystems.
Yes, definitely.
Yeah.
And the fact that it's a lot of our people are being pushed to the South Shore.
Yes.
Being gentrified out of here, and so that's even another reason for you to be running in this seat,
That's true.
I mean, the fact that there's never been a person of color in that role. Well, if you look at Baker's administration, he didn't have no black or brown cabinet makers, cabinet what do you call them? Cabinet, he
administratively,
didn't have any. So when you have a bunch of white people, making decisions for the entire state, and the majority of the state is people of color, we're not being represented.
That's right.
And
basically it has been white men.
Yes.
That has been in control, in power.
Exactly.
For centuries.
Exactly.
And we know that history,
right,
just, I'm not the type of person to keep focusing on that. It's about change. We have change that's happening. We have a whole diversified city hall.
Yes.
I would suggest the state house is starting to be diversified.
Yes.
I mean, we're
getting a little bit more.
That's right.
Yeah, we're getting a little bit more.
We're getting a little bit more. And so, but the governor's council has not.
Right.
We talking about diversity, equity, and inclusion. New term.
Yeah.
I'm ignorant. I don't know. I keep talking about new word from affirmative action. Come on, y'all. We just need to keep it real. There are qualified people. Black and brown people are just as qualified.
That's right.
To be in these seats.
That's right.
And
probably more qualified.
Listen, more qualified because we have the lived experiences.
That's right.
You named it. I'm formerly incarcerated. I don't hide that fact. I have worked hard to change. I have worked hard to show my accountability and responsibility. And I have stayed in our community to uplift our community so we don't have to ever be into that institution. We don't have to send people to prisons.
Right.
We can do much better.
That's right.
And we could, thrive like any other communities.
That's right.
When you look at the criminal justice system, we have an influx of 58 A's. That's dangerousness hearing. That's almost indefinite. You could hold somebody up to 120 days.
Wow.
Why would we do that? We have these gun charges. Everybody where's the guns coming from?
Right.
That has been the biggest question.
I asked that question a long time ago.
And so if we have our young men and women that are walking down the street, all of a sudden a gun appears and you want to hold them indefinitely. That kind of takes away our rights to bear arms, doesn't it?
Yes.
If we really look at that whole picture. And I say that to judges when people call me to come into court. That's what I say to judges, like how many white communities? We know Boston College came out with the report last year, maybe 2 years ago, that the higher percentage of gun possession are white communities. But are they going to prison? Aren't they going to shooting ranges and hunting at 15, 16, 17, 18 years old?
Yep.
But they're not going to prison. They're not cited.
Nope.
I always suggest to judges, like, take that gun, if it was found on them, which most aren't. They're always under the car, on the ground, in the bushes, in a backpack somewhere. It's not on body or on person or ownership, right? So I must say to the community, fight for your rights and ask the judge, take that gun and allow me to go get a permit. I'll take a $5,000 fine and let me get a permit and let me go with the law says, a right to bear arms. Now, I'm not a gun owner. I'm not a gun advocate. I don't believe in guns. I think that there are other countries that don't even have this type of process of guns and trades and all that. Guns kill.
They sure do.
But if no one pointed at you and no one threatened you with it and you say you found it, then what are you holding them for? Without a bail? Our criminal justice system needs to be revamped. I'm not a reformist. It needs to be revamped. And I think that we're going on the right track. I sit around the round table through Harvard Kennedy School with Sister Sandra Smith, who's a professor. And she's a chair of many departments. Her research team is phenomenal. And under Chief Justice Budd, who's following Judge Gantz's report on discriminatory practices, unfortunately, Judge Gantz passed away when the report came out, 3 months after the report came out. And Chief Kimberly Budd said, let's continue this journey of research. And so for the past 3.5 years, I've been fortunate as a formerly incarcerated woman to sit around the round table and take a look at these discriminatory practices. Along with, many other, Rasan Hall and many other people, Armand Coleman, the Transformational Prison Project, Brother Davo, who works for the city. I mean, we've sat around the round table with Sandra Smith, Katie Naples, who was with the Charles Houston Institute, to dive in and look at this.
That sounds good.
And judges that sit from anywhere from district level to superior level to have these conversations about these discriminatory practices that's been going on for decades.
Right.
And so judges are listening.
Okay.
As to why I'm saying I'm pushed.
Right.
My spirit is saying I must get on that governor's council.
Yes.
So I can ask these prospective judges, these prospective parole board members, what are you going to do different?
Exactly.
What are you going to do when a human being is in front of you that has come from a lot of trauma, a lot of lapse of resources that they know we haven't had in our community? Are you going to discard these people? If they can't give me a proper answer, I want to give them a proper answer. I will not accept their nomination.
All right.
That's the way we make change. People need to listen. Reporters are always listening. We're on this platform right here. People are listening.
Yes.
And so I'm excited about this.
Well, I'm excited for you, Stacy.
Thank
real,
you. And we need all the help we can get. We need to educate our community.
Exactly. And so I would, like for you to come back another time.
I would love to come back.
And because this is information, this is information to build the nation, right?
Ooh, you come up, man.
No,
Listen.
I got that from Brother Charles. I can't claim it, but but yeah. So I'm excited. I'm excited for your run as well as some other folks that are running.
It's not about me. I'm excited about my run for our community.
Yes,
you know what I mean.
But I mean other folks in the community that are running for other offices.
Yes.
Because this is an election year. Every year is an election year. This is a very important election year.
That's right.
We have state legislators that are running.
Yep.
We have state senators that are running.
That's right.
We have the governor's counselor.
Yeah.
We have a presidential election. Help us, Jesus.
Help us, Jesus.
Because I tell you, it's the things that are coming out of people's mouths these days. But you know what? I really truly believe that there's a shift. Yeah. I feel like there's a shift in things that are happening. I don't know if you're aware, but we started a prayer group back at City Hall once a month.
Nice.
I partnered with Julia Mejia.
Yes.
And so we had our second one last Wednesday. We had a lot of women pastors and clergy because it was women's celebration. Mm-hmm. But the first one we had was February 14th, which was Valentine's Day.
Nice.
And we had 6 of the city councilors come in there, and so we're doing this on a monthly basis, but we're going to see how it grows, because when I worked at City Hall, when I ran the payroll, for 5 years we had a prayer group, and every Tuesday from 1 to 2 we were on the curly room praying.
Nice.
And so we did that from 2005, and then 2008 came and Ayanna Presley was elected.
Yep.
Then Michelle Wu came in, so it just kind of like things started changing in City Hall. And look at City Hall now.
Yeah.
Look at it now.
Look at it.
We got rid of some folks that really needed to be got rid of.
Yes. Yes.
Thankfully they resigned on their own. But change is coming.
Change is coming.
And these people that are coming are younger, but some of these elected officials really are about the work.
Yes.
And so we have a phone call. Good morning, caller. You're on the air.
Good morning, ladies. Minister Priscilla and Stacy. How are you guys?
Good morning,
Wonderful.
Eric.
Good morning.
How are you?
Good. And I wanted to address Ms. Borden and say congratulations on your run. But my question to you is, do you know anyone that's currently on the governor's board, and have you gotten any support for your election run from anyone?
Well, that's a good question. I am still in the process of gathering signatures. We have until April 30th. We're at a 813 certified signatures.
Okay,
we still have
there.
200 to go. It's 1,000 signatures. So we haven't gotten out there yet to really ask for that type of support, but as soon as we get that 1,000 in and we bring it up to the state commission office, we're on the ground running.
All right.
Awesome. Good. Well, congratulations and keep going. And I appreciate all you do for the community and especially for us that are returned citizens.
Thank you so much.
Yes.
Grateful you're home.
I'll be listening.
All right, sir.
Thanks,
Thank you.
Eric.
Yep.
Yes. Yeah, so that is a good question. Do you know anybody on the council?
Well, I don't know him personally. I have sat. We were supporting Sarah for her nomination, Sarah Coughlin, for her nomination for parole board member. Sarah is amazing. Sarah has everything that you should have to be in that type of position when you're dealing with someone's life.
Tell me exactly what a parole officer does.
Well, parole board member.
Parole board
Parole
member,
board member reviews someone that is eligible for parole. What I mean by Sarah, when I mean by someone like Sarah, we gathered around Sarah. She is not formerly incarcerated, but she has been in our community helping nonprofits and, formerly incarcerated people that are creating these resources for people to come out of prisons.
Okay.
And so having Sarah with her mental health background, licensed in mental health, licensed in substance abuse counselor, licensed independent social worker, being on the ground with nonprofit organizations to help us develop to bring people out of prison. That's who we need on the board.
Right.
And that's what Sarah does. Review someone that comes in front of them, and they question them, and they look at their history. Now, if you've had disciplinary reports, often you're not going to be approved.
Right.
But someone like Sarah and others that are on the board are really starting. We want to talk about Dr. Barner. She's a psychologist. You have to look into the minds of, why'd you do what you did? What have you done to rectify that? How has your healing process started in the prison? We know that the prison isn't a place of healing.
Right.
We know the prison is a place of education.
Right.
It's often a violent environment because why? The system is trained militantly. They look at anybody, no matter what your transgression was, they look at everybody the same, that you're harmful, and that's how we're going to treat you. So the parole board, their job is to look at them different, to see what they've done, to see if they could articulate themselves well enough to say that they're able to come back into the community. And we don't have that type of board. We have a few, maybe a couple, that are willing to look at people that are coming in front of them to say, okay, I've done CRA program, the Correctional Recovery Academy, which is starting to be diminished. I've done a BU degree program or certificate program. I've done culinary. I've been a barber. I've gotten my cosmetology license. I've done everything I could possibly do. And mind you, most times when you go into prison, you're getting sentenced, you're often engaging in fighting, trying to survive, living in a cage.
Yes.
And then you have 5, 10, 7, 15 years later, you've changed. Why?
Right.
Because your brain changes. Your brain develops. We don't talk about that enough.
Exactly. Tell me something. How many people on the parole board? How many parole board members are there?
There's 7. We're really trying to fight for more. Where there are parole advocates out here that are asking the governor to extend
like maybe
the
9.
number. Yes.
Yeah.
Or 11.
Yes.
I mean, it
so
takes
you have
more thought
input.
process.
Yes.
That's right. That's
so
right.
you have more input from people.
That's right.
You know.
And we have a lack of education in our community. So you expect someone after 30 years to come in front of you and know what to say? They're scared.
Right.
Their lives is in your hands.
That's right.
And so how do you want people to come back? How do you want people to be your neighbor? Do you want them to be more fulfilled and educated and can't say happy? It's a process when you come out of an environment like that.
Right.
If you hadn't ever experienced being in a prison, I'm going to ask you not to talk about it.
Right.
Because you don't have that lived experience. You haven't been in a cage. You haven't been beat down. You haven't been deprived of food. You haven't been deprived of a tampon. You have not been equally treated in a prison. A prison is a prison. That will never change. And so we could have no prisons. We could have architectures come in and rebuild healing centers. We could have transform harm centers. We could do restorative justice centers. By the way, the criminal justice system is incorporated. Let me shout out to Judge Krupp, who's part of a board who's saying we need more restorative justice learning.
Right.
That's what's happening. It's slowly but surely getting there.
Yeah, I hear you.
But if we can start really thinking on that level, we could have absolute no prisons. And that's coming from Angela Davis.
All right.
She has been saying that for decades.
Yes.
She has a book on absolute prisons.
Yes.
That's the world we need to live in. How do we teach our children any different? Should they be looking for prisons versus
education?
Education?
Yeah.
or desire or dream to be a doctor, lawyer, advocate, whatever. Should they be grown up dreaming I'm going to prison? I don't think nobody's ever dreamed I'm going to be in a prison.
Right.
In a cell. Those 5x8, 5x12 with a toilet in a bed. I say to people, go home and get in your bathroom and lay in that bathtub and see how many hours you can stay locked in that bathroom, because that's what a prison cell is. And people are living in them for decades. We've already changed the trajectory of juvenile sentencing, right? We can't sentence a juvenile, and we've moved that age up to 21 to a natural life sentence, right?
Yeah.
So that says psychologists and psychiatric care is saying our brain doesn't develop until well after 21. In my case, I'm sorry to say, I didn't mature till I was 47. My trauma didn't allow my brain to accelerate to my frontal cortex to make decisive decisions. It was always irrational thinking. When am I going to think rationally? When am I going to make the right decision?
Right.
So we know the brain develops from back to front. So we have somebody coming in front of you who have changed after 30 or 40 or even 10 years.
Right.
Why are we still holding them?
That's right.
We're saying free our people.
That's right.
Free our people.
That's so true. Really, when you think about it, right? People do change over years. People don't stay the same.
People may think they stay the same. Some of the behaviors may stay the same, but the thinking process, and believe me, inside, you're calling out for help because you're changing.
That's right.
So people say, well, what does change mean? When people come into our program, they're like, what am I going to change? I'm like, well, we ain't talking about your underclothes. You need to change that too, but we have to change the way we think. Sometimes we think our behaviors act first, but no, there's a thought process that happens before the behavior. Right. You have a moment that you can just calm down for a minute, breathe, and say, I'm not going to respond this way. We must start responding effectively. Effective communication works.
You had one of the people who called in who couldn't go on the air because they were at work. They responded to something that you said, that if a person was arrested having a gun, that why can't they say to the judge, let me go and get a license so I can have it legally? But the person who called said that most of the young people or young adults who are arrested with guns, that the guns are illegal. So that person said they don't think that a judge would be responsive to somebody saying, let me get a license. And
well, why not? The judge has this. I can't get my word out because I'm
speak to the camera because that person is watching right now.
So judges have the power, the discretion to not hold someone. I'm not saying give them the gun back. I'm saying the judge has the right to take the gun and give them a fine and teach them, go get a permit. And if this gun doesn't have any bodies or any criminal processes on it, you can come back and get the gun when you get a permit. Of course, it's illegal. We have a law that says we need to have a license or a permit to carry a firearm. But if you're taking it and you're holding this individual, and you don't even know if the gun was on his body or he didn't own it, but you're holding him, when we should be teaching them. The other communities are being taught that way, right? That's all I'm saying. And that's what I say to a judge. They have the discretion. Now, I'm not versed in the law in that sense of, what I always say, that the Commonwealth says they have an obligation, and they often just think about the Commonwealth in a prosecutor's way, as if the prosecutor has all the power. They don't.
Really, the judge.
The judge has the power, and often the judges don't take that discretion. But you're often leaving out the defense attorney who's supposed to represent an individual. But how does that individual get to know that defense attorney when you only have 2 minutes sitting in a cell? How does that work? So that has been my stance for a long time with this new wave of 58As. Holding them on.
58A?
58A is saying that you're dangerous because you had an illegal gun, or you're dangerous because you had a fight, you had an altercation, and we think that we should hold you indefinitely for dangerousness. And we'll hear you in 90 days or 120 days to see if you're still dangerous or not.
Wow.
Oh my goodness.
That's a 58A.
Whew.
Wow.
Unbelievable.
Now, everybody has a right to have a bail. Everybody has a right to be heard. But you just took all that rights away from that person because you have the power to say you're dangerous. You don't know if that altercation really even happened.
Or what was the cause of the altercation?
There it goes.
It could have been a self-defense thing, you know?
It sure could have. We know how many people, black and brown, men and women, that have been held for 28, 30, 47 years on wrongful convictions. Do you want to even talk about that?
Too many. And that in itself is a shame. And that's criminal.
That's prosecutorial misconduct. That's what that's called. The same as we're doing in this new wave of 58 days. Now, people say about our children are looking for a place of belonging.
That's right.
They don't want to hurt nobody.
They don't.
We don't even know if they're carrying that gun because they're scared.
Exactly. And that has been the case for a few people. A lot of people.
Most of the young people that I've dealt with, and when I was a magistrate in the court system, they were carrying the guns to protect themselves.
Thank you,
Yeah.
Pastor.
Yeah.
That's what I'm talking about. And that's what we need to convey to our community.
That's right.
How can we protect them?
Right.
How can we make them feel less
Safe.
fear?
Yep. Make them feel safe.
Because I don't feel more safe that you held somebody.
Right.
That don't make me go to sleep at night. You know.
You think about it. That's true.
We could get in a
it's
different-
definitely. The system needs to change its way of thinking for real. And the only way that's going to happen if you get people in there that really care, that have the experience, that know what they're talking about and know how to make change.
That's right.
And has been part of the change.
That's right.
Right?
That's right.
So just like with my program, Marcus Anthony Hall Educational Institute, we're changing people's lives by having this program. People have testified and said, when I met this person, I knew what I wanted to do in life.
Yeah.
You know, so we got to take them when they're young,
Yeah.
and we got to nurture them. We got to love them. A lot of our young folks come from dysfunctional homes, you know, but that doesn't mean that they have to be dysfunctional. You
That's
know?
right.
And then if we can work it out so that they feel better about themselves, they know that they can do better, then they're
right.
gonna go home with a different attitude, and
That's
they may
right.
be able to change their families' lives.
That's right.
You never know.
That's right. Priscilla, my mind is racing. I feel like I want to write a book right now with all these conversations. We're thinking about, I speak at some of the schools, some of these elementary schools, and I hear the children. Mm-hmm. I'm mandated because I'm a licensed clinician, and I can only go so far with these kids, but I hear them. I was a kid. I don't forget my childhood. I'll never forget that. But I'm not a parent.
Right.
But I do know what dysfunction looks like.
Right.
And I
right.
do know that we need to give our mothers. Women are hormonally different.
Help.
People look at this system and look at us as if we're so dysfunctional that we can't change and we can't make our communities and lives better.
I know Angie always talked, when I first met her, she used to talk about wraparound services in the home.
That's right.
These young parents don't have to go to prison.
That's right.
Because when a mother goes to prison, the whole house is jacked up. When the father goes to prison, the mother just steps in and takes over. But when a mother goes to prison, the whole family is dysfunction.
That's right.
You know? So if you got 2 or 3 kids, you're worried about where your kids going.
Yeah.
A lot of them get placed into foster care. Yeah. Sometimes those foster care places are not the place for these kids to be.
That's right.
So then maybe we need to start more parenting classes, because it seems like our kids, we're having babies younger and
love
younger.
that. What you just said about parenting classes, I'm not a parent. I just admitted that. But when I was in prison, I took parenting. I took parenting for good time, right?
Right.
But I was so glad I took parenting because it gave me an understanding of my own parents and how I became who I am or who I was becoming.
Right.
It's important.
It is.
It's like vital.
Yes.
But how do we get parents to attend?
Right. Well, we gotta you know that's a project that we could work on. You know,
Yeah.
especially if we're doing work with their children. You know,
There was
if
a
you're
time-
working with children, a lot of times they'll go back home and tell their parents
Yeah.
what they've learned, what's
Yeah.
going on. And, you know, Mom, come support, you know?
Yeah.
Like when we have our graduation every year for the youth, we invite the parents and stuff so that they can get involved so they can see what we're teaching their young folks.
We got to reach the community.
Yes, that's what
There
it's
was a
all
time I
about.
used to have a dream of coming to churches. People sit in their windows. I see people when I'm driving through communities, and they're in their windows, and they're thinking like I was, dreaming, wishing, crying, like the depth of us wishing things could change, but they don't necessarily know how to get that happen. That's why I couldn't
Right.
do nothing until I was 47, right? I used to dream of coming through and asking pastors to come out. Let's do a big giant rally because people listen to pastors, churches.
Yeah.
They're in our community. Like, we got to do that. We got to bring
I
an
used to-
ecosystem.
I used to say Blue Hill Ave got churches all up and down. Why can't we have church on Blue Hill Ave sometimes,
Right?
you know?
Yeah.
Like, you know, like they have like the Friday nights. I know they do the walks and stuff, you know, and then they
Yeah.
do stuff on Saturday. But let's have a day. Blue Hill Ave. All the
Yeah.
churches come out, you
Let's
know?
see who's here.
Yeah.
Who do we have here?
Blue Hill Ave goes from Dudley
Yeah.
to River Street.
Yeah.
And I know there got to be at least 50 churches. At least.
Yeah.
That's the minimum, right?
Yeah.
And we got some big churches on that street, right?
Yeah.
Why can't we just have a church day?
Listen, I went to Alabama with Andrea James maybe 3 years ago, and Alabama's rocking. We went through the towns and churches was out. It was the most. We went for the march for the
Selma.
Edmund for Selma,
Yeah,
right? The Edmund Pettus Bridge,
Right.
And we were trying to make a statement to free our people. This is when John Lewis was still alive.
Okay.
And his driver got out on the bridge to ask us to kind of calm down for a minute, right? Let John Lewis make his statement. And I'm telling you, but the remarkable part of it was the churches was out. And the community was out. Them churches bring the communities together.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying Boston don't, but I don't see it enough.
Right.
So this is a shout out to all our churches.